look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spent. Take another look now and take some time for hemp. Don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for hemp. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rest. Right now, it's time for hemp.
Thank you for taking Time for Hemp. I'm your host, Casper Leitch. You are listening to Time for Hemp on Tumblr, SoundCloud, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker. I'll tell you, you can find Time for Hemp all over the internet. We're also on the Roku TV network now. We've launched our Roku TV broadcasting network about a week ago. And if you got a Roku a stick that you can stick and put into your TV, or a Roku box that you add to your TV, you can now watch the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network team talk about and show you all the reasons why it's so important to end prohibition. It is Thursday, and on Thursday we put a spotlight on what's happening here in America with some of the amazing activists that are working diligently to end prohibition. And as often as we can for the Thursday show, we have Paul Stanford as our joint host. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning. Hey, Casper, how are you today?
Fine. It's been a couple of weeks since we've had a chance to get caught up with you. What have you been up to lately?
Helping medical marijuana patients around the country and farming hemp and cannabis in Oregon and Washington State.
And I know you're also very busy putting together a remarkable event in Portland, Oregon, known as Hemp Stock. And I know you had a little tug of war with the city council and the citizen board here.
Yeah, it was actually the Parks Department and the police. They opposed our permit for the second year in a row and wouldn't give us a permit. So there's a unique appeals process where you go before the mayor and the city council. And the mayor and the city council for the second year in a row, this is our 11th annual event, by the way, but for the second year in a row, the mayor and the city council overturned the Parks Department's denial of our permit and gave us a permit. So we're going forward with our Hemp Stock Festival in downtown Portland at Waterfront Park, right on the river, on October 17th and 18th.
Now, that's later than normal, but for the event, that could be beneficial because of the way Oregon has structured its new laws, right?
Yeah, effective coming up soon, October 1st, they will allow about 250 medical marijuana dispensaries that are licensed in the state. They will be allowed to sell to adults. So this will be after that date, and so people will be able to legally buy marijuana if they're over the age of 21. And so that changes the dynamic for certain.
Well, it certainly is going to be a fantastic event, as always, and I look forward to being there, as I have been these last few years since I've been living here in Portland, Oregon. And I know the event is also a real treat for many people here in the community. The entire marijuana movement certainly does look forward to coming together in Portland, Oregon. So I know it'll be a lot of fun, and the team that's putting it together are very talented, and so it should be very, very fun. And I know you got some bands lined up as well, some great speakers.
Yeah, we have John Trudell, famous Native American activist. He's coming back, and lots of other people. So Chris Bennett, the scholar from Canada on the ancient use of cannabis, and Andrea Herman, who does this radio show here on your network. She's the head of the National Hemp Industry Association, and many, many others.
Well, like I say, everybody who's listening to this, who happens to be in the Portland area, needs to make it a point to add that to their holiday festivals and make it an event that you do not forget to attend. It'll be harvest time, and it'll be a nice way to roll into the winter and to wrap up fall here in the Portland area. On the program today, we have as our joint guest. Don't forget, anytime you hear the word joint on the big broadcast, nearly 2.5 million people all around the world pack their bongs, their pipes, their vaporizers, and, of course, twist up a joint and take time for hemp. Anytime you hear the word joint on the big broadcast, please join us in that process. Our guest is also our joint guest, our joint host on Wednesdays on our Leap Wednesday program. But he's also a very hard activist and brings a lot to the table when he sits down at the cannabis reform movement. We have Judge Leonard Frieling. Good morning, Your Honor.
Casper, good morning. As always, what a treat. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And one of the things that brings you to our table as a guest is this remarkable, groovy little app that you and a friend of yours have created, right?
Where do I begin? It's a game changer. It's thrilling. I did it all by myself. There was no teamwork. I knew everything there was to know, except for everything that mattered.
Okay.
My friend and co-developer, Mark Silverman, is the expert, NASA-level expert on human performance, and he has the coding abilities with Apple, with iTunes, for iTunes apps, so that he can take his years and years and years working with astronauts, working with pro athletes in a number of different sports, examining human performance, looking at what matters. And one of his goals, at which he has succeeded, and I'd like to believe I played a role in it. But he did the heavy lifting on the science, on turning the measurements into meaningful information. What we have is an iTunes app called My Canary. Oh, I'm sorry, I must have stumbled. Let me repeat that. My Canary. What we do is this. Historically, what we've been doing nationally, internationally, is looking at blood chemistry. How much alcohol, how much ethyl alcohol is in a person's blood? How much, if we're lucky, how much active THC is in a person's blood? If we're unlucky, looking at how much carboxy THC, the stuff that does nothing psychoactive, except it hangs out in your fat cells. So that is the famous form of THC, which gives people positive urine test results. We would call them negative, since they get people fired for imbibing, smoking, vaping, which may have occurred as much as, the longest I've read, is 105 days before the urine test. So not only do we ignore the chemistry, and let's take that one step further. Let's say, for example, let's lie a bit. I'm a responsible guy. I'll act like I'm a responsible guy, and I want to make intelligent, rational decisions. I want to go down to my basement and make myself a new pen on a wood lathe. I want to operate a table saw. I want to make an important decision. I want to drive a car. Well, we used to think you could count the number of drinks and approximate stuff. Scientifically, bunk. We can't count drinks and tell us much of anything. Not only does it not really tell us what's going on in the... I'm sorry, let's get to the focus. What it does not tell us is whether or not a person is impaired, impacted. It gives us a number. And although that number might have some meaning on average, the famous bell-shaped curve, the Poisson distribution, call it what you want. But what we do with these blood tests is we look at average. Well, if I happen to be particularly sensitive, and we have met people, they take one toke, they are impaired. I have smoked pot where one toke, I thought I was impaired. And then we have others that can smoke huge amounts and not be particularly impaired. And then let's complicate it. Person gets up in the morning. They take their prescription pain medication according to directions. Then 2 hours later, they drink half a beer that's 9.2%. Colorado, we're really good at that. And as we know, Washington and Oregon are brilliant. Beer. Yeah, and it's really good. It's called Small Batch 471. Washington and Oregon are also brilliant at microbrews. Here's where I'm going with that. 2 tokes, some unknown THC level, some unknown tolerance. Add half a beer. Add 1 prescription medication, except today you only took half a pill because your back feels pretty good. What does the chemistry tell us? Well, that's really easy. Nothing. It gives us no useful information that helps us figure out whether or not we might be impaired, slightly impaired, a lot impaired. Instead of looking at chemistry and the latest horror show, roadside saliva testing to test for THC in saliva, and then criminally penalizing people, prosecuting people based on chemistry, which the science is really clear. It tells us basically nothing. So what we've done, and this is with the help of Paul Armentano to make sure our marijuana piece of the picture was covered properly, what we do is we look at reaction time. We look at balance. We look at short-term memory. And we look at time perception. Then we take those hard data points. We apply Mark's knowledge of human performance and give honest-to-God feedback. For example, I had my 1 toke, I had my 1 glass of beer, the painkiller, I'm feeling just fine. Who cares what I think I feel? It matters. It is meaningless. And you've noticed I've said the word meaningless a lot. I mean meaningless. On the other hand, if my canary is indicating that my reaction time compared to the baseline that I set privately for me personally, if my reaction time is off, do I really care why? Or do I care that maybe I won't react to the rabbit or the child or the dog running in front of my car? I'll tell you what I care about. I care about my reaction time, not the chemistry. Scientifically, chemistry's fascinating. I love it. How many people have a ring stand with fancy glassware on their office shelf because they think it looks pretty? Me. But let's not overestimate the chemistry. Let's instead look at balance. And we're talking about balance information being interpreted by somebody that studies, for example, Parkinson's disease. So things like a Parkinsonian type of shaking looks different on the iPhone using the hardware, the operating system, than that kind of body movement one would anticipate from, say, alcohol. Short-term memory. Oh, by the way, I solved the problem of short-term memory. I'm very proud of this. The way to solve the short-term memory problem is really straightforward. Wait 15 minutes. At which point it is, of course, no longer short-term memory.
Right.
So that's really not a problem. And where the science does come in, we know, because Mark has studied, that if we look at short-term memory for 6 numbers, that's enough numbers. We can get more information with 7 or 8 numbers, but not much more information. So we know what the body movement suggests. We know what the short-term memory suggests. How many numbers should you be able to remember? The time perception, very challenging. A person's perception of time. How long do I think 20 seconds is? If I am asked by my canary, tell me when you think 20 seconds is up. Marijuana tends to push that estimate in one direction, alcohol in the opposite direction. So we compare what I normally think 20 seconds is to what I'm telling my canary 20 seconds is right now, right here. Real information, applying years and years of study. And I'm going to switch subjects just for a second here. How many times have we all heard, well, about marijuana? Yeah, sure. Maybe all of that is true. Maybe it saves the planet. Maybe hemp is the greatest thing in the universe. Maybe it prevents cancer. Maybe it helped Mr. X Carl Sagan expand his thinking. We need to study it more. If we go and Google PubMed, P-U-B-M-E-D. And on PubMed, a collection of thousands, many thousands of peer-reviewed studies. And we type in the word cannabis. We come up with just shy of 20,000 studies, which are either available in full or the high concept, the study summary is available. My point is, 20,000 studies. Do you think there were 20, and many of our listeners may not be old enough to understand this reference, but do we think that one of the most horrible causes of birth defects, thalidomide, ever experienced in human existence, approved by the FDA before it was yanked, before the one guy who was screaming wolf saying this is causing birth defects, and then finally the FDA realized that, oh, whoops, people are being born without arms. The worst kinds of birth defects caused by thalidomide. FDA approved it. Do you think there were 20,000 studies done on that?
No, but I do have this. I do have this information. There's been about 20,000 studies done on people who don't pay their bills, and they all conclude that they end up homeless. So with that said, we are going to pay our bills here on the big broadcast. Then we're going to listen to a song about how fantastic marijuana is, and then we're going to come back and pick up where we left off here at Time for Hemp.
Are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. The only broadcasting network dedicated to ending the global war on drugs on iHeartRadio.
Medical clinics are the premier physicians clinic in the United States. THCF has offices all across the United States from Hawaii to Michigan. THCF Medical Clinics has helped approximately 150,000 patients obtain their medical marijuana permits to legally possess, grow, and use medical marijuana. If you have chronic pain, multiple sclerosis, or any other neurological degenerative disease, or if you have any gastrointestinal disorders such as GERD, irritable bowel syndrome, or if you have AIDS, cancer, spastic disorders, seizure disorders, or glaucoma, call us at 1-800-723-0188 or visit us online at hemp.org. Again, the number is 1-800-723-0188. and the site is hemp.org.
My sweetheart drove, my sweetheart drove. Why did you go? Now I'm all alone, my sweetheart drove. Oh, I still love you, dear, but now you've gone away. How I wished I had you here, smell your sweet bouquet. Well, some men fall for women, and some men, they're like wine. But I'm only half the man, unless I'm getting high. My sweetheart drove, my sweetheart drove. If I only had a bow, I wouldn't be so alone, my sweetheart drove. Now you're soft and mellow tone. The scent is so divine, and I just want you to know that I'd smoke you all the time, my sweetheart rose, my sweetheart rose. If I only had a bow, I wouldn't be so alone, my sweetheart rose.
That's Johnny. No, that's Sean Reefer and the Resident Valley Boys. Truly a talented group of people. I would encourage you to go to Sean Reefer and the Resident Valley Boys website, buy one of their CDs, find them on iTunes, and let them know that you heard about them here on the big broadcast. That's one of my favorite songs. As you can understand, I like to sing about Sweet Hydro. The only thing I like to do with Sweet Hydro more than sing about it is, of course, as you've guessed, is smoke it. And I'm doing that now here on the big broadcast. Don't forget, We are a group of people now dedicated to ending prohibition 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all cannabis, all the time. We've got a big surprise coming to our website starting in about a week. We're going to be growing marijuana on our site. And you can come in and watch it grow every morning, every afternoon, and night. Yes, you can. It'll be live stream, and it'll be a large garden. And we're going to watch a greenhouse be cleaned out, and then we're going to watch the greenhouse be set up, and then we're going to watch all the seeds be planted, and then we're going to watch this lovely crop come to nice, tall, beautiful plants, and then we're going to watch the males be taken out and killed, which makes me cry sometimes, and then we're going to watch them flower, be picked and harvested, and then after they dry, we're going to watch people smoke them live on a live stream here at Time for Hemp. Let your friends know about that. Well, with all that said, I'm tired of self-promotion. That's not very polite to do here on a big broadcast when you got such stellar guests and joint hosts as Paul Stanford and Judge Lenny Frieling. So I think with that said, I'll just have my joint conversation heard in my ears while I have my joint going in my mouth here on the big joint broadcast while my joint guest and my joint host have their joint chat. Paul, Lenny?
Glad to be back. As always, Casper, your shows are just smoking. I love that. Adding kind of a final touch to the My Canary picture. One, we wish it were on Android. It is not yet. That is planned in the future. One of the challenges is the sheer power of the hardware software of the iPhone, including things like the three-dimensional accelerometer. And without these hardware assets, things like looking at balance become impossible. So we have some smartphones that have the assets, some that don't. It is in the future. We know it's out there. We know it's needed. We had to start somewhere. So we started at the beginning. People are concerned with privacy. I can look you in the eye and tell you that is ridiculous. There is no reason to be concerned about privacy during this millennium. It's not worth another thought. There is none. There simply is none. So why should we even think that there is? But I will say that with My Canary, you can flip a switch. You can tell it, remember my history. You can delete specific tests. You can tell it, remember nothing. This is not going to a cloud. This is personal. This is between you, yourself, and your phone only remembers it if you tell it to. On the other hand, if you're letting your 17-year-old kid take the car out for the night, might be very interesting as a parent to look at the result of their test that they took as instructed, condition of borrowing mom's car. Look at their test the next morning. Did they call a cab because the result wasn't great, or did they drive anyway? Why wouldn't that be a condition of borrowing the car? What could be more important than requiring your kid not to punish them if they fail the test, to reward them? They failed the test. They didn't drive. They made a good decision. And rolling from good decisions, which is our goal, help people make good decisions. We can't make the decision for them. We can't tell them legal, illegal, safe, not safe, but we can use real science with real measurements with a great deal of precision and give them better input than I believe is available in any form, in any way, for a couple of dollars. The highest the price has been, $4.99. We worked with normal over Labor Day, 99 cents. We want to help people. Do I want to get wealthy and call myself Steve Jobs too? Sure. Is that the only reason we're doing it? Of course not. Now, as a friend of mine would say, bet it's one of the top 3. Sure, we'd like to sell millions of them. But we really do want to Give people the tools they need. Let me switch subjects, if I may. We have presidential election coming up, and because of our, I would argue, somewhat flawed election process, the new election begins about an hour after the result of the previous election 4 years before are counted. Count the votes, then start campaigning for 4 years later. So here we are, more than a year out from an election. We have 47 Republican debates coming up, or is it 48? We have a huge number of Republican debates, which incidentally are one of the more amusing things we could be watching on TV. And we can scratch our heads and just wonder, how did these people get on this stage? Who would vote for them? When one has to say things like, well, everything Donald Trump says is not stupid, although some of it is. Everything is not. And that's the high point of the evening. What the hell? This is no John Kennedy. This is no Abraham Lincoln. I want to see something, a really sympathetic cause. Let's say we're looking at a high CBD strain, and I believe, correct me please, cannabidiol, I believe is the pronunciation. That's the strain that is associated with helping infants, children, go from hundreds of seizures a day to 0, to 1 a month. Radical results. Why don't we name a strain, a high CBD strain, Christie Chronic?
I love it.
He's the one that threw down the gauntlet. I love everybody. He threw down the gauntlet. Let's give him his own strain. He's earned it.
Hey, Paul, can you make that happen? Paul, can you make a strain? I know you've got a lot of gardens. Can you produce a strain like that?
Well, I could. I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to have the association with Chris Christie, given his background. He took over as governor in New Jersey just as the previous governor had signed a medical marijuana bill. It was one of the last acts of the previous Democratic governor. Then he obstructed the implementation of New Jersey's medical marijuana law, and one of the requirements was that it couldn't be high THC. It had to be no more than 10% THC. He just pulled this number out of the air, to say it in a nice way, but he's not someone who I would want to, name something after. Let's just put it that way.
All right.
But the debates and all the talk about the presidential election, we never hear what the substance is, what their policies are. What you hear instead are, this guy's up by 2% and this guy said that about his brother, and it's all about the numbers and the jockeying and the race and the polls. It's not about what they're going to do at all. I like to take Bernie Sanders, for instance. He's got a lot of different policies out there. He can talk about them ad infinitum, but the thing that comes out is, he happened to say that Hillary might be nervous now. Oh, that's the news. Bernie says Hillary might be nervous. Nothing about what their policies are. It's just the distraction of the moment is the way I like to put it. It's, don't look at what's really happening. Look over here at this. It's, don't pay any attention to the real problems. Don't look behind the curtain, little girl. It's just a distraction, and we get constantly bombarded with, the crime of the moment, the poll of the moment. As long as we don't consider the real substance of the issues, then that's what they like to keep us fixated with, don't you think?
I do, and it's been frustrating to get any real news. I noticed that we've got like 16 or 17 major fires going on around the United States. California is almost up in flames in the northern part. Huge drought. We got people dying in a flood that's going on here in our country. And the only thing I'm able to find on the news is what Donald Trump might say in an hour. And gosh, Hillary still hasn't released her emails. It's like, really?
The image that I'm getting is the scoreboard at a horse race track. It doesn't depend on which horse is the fastest. The numbers change based on who's betting how much on which horse. We pay more attention in these political races to the horse race scoreboard than we do to things like their positions, their plans, their proposals. As far as Christie, he's at least predictable. We know his style. Obstruction. I believe it's been now 3 years that my brother has been unable to legally get medicine for his psoriatic arthritis. Thank you, Mr. Christie. When my brother is in debilitating pain and can't get out of bed, thank you, Mr. Christie. I appreciate that. That's really a service. That helped a lot of people. And I'm being careful what words I choose because even the FCC has some limits, and their limits do not allow for the proper adjectives to describe Governor Christie. Oh, it doesn't even sound good. But let's look at obstruction. What do you do if you're the governor and you're Chris Christie? You shut down the roads. You have your people shut down the bridges. It's more obstruction. Now, it does sound like Chicago politics of the 30s, and that's what he is still doing. It's frankly quite terrifying. The good
Christie.
Please.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
Okay, well, Christie says he's going to turn back the clock and stop the law in Colorado, Washington, Oregon, Alaska, and Washington, D.C., and he's joined by Ted Cruz and Mike Huckabee and a couple of the other ones have said they are going to stop the laws that our voters passed and turn back the clock. So the only one among the Republican field that's halfway decent is Rand Paul in terms of marijuana policy. So it goes.
Politicians, from what I can see, are driven by two things: money and votes. And when I look at Florida in the last medical pot election, some people talk of it as a defeat. I think 58% is a huge victory. And even Christie would have to be more of a moron than I think he is to think 58% doesn't matter. And how he's going to get around that, I don't know. I do know that Christie may be my second favorite Republican of all times of modern Republicans, not Lincoln Republicans, next to Sarah Palin.
Now, you did use the word moron, and I've got to say I agree. Moron is something that we've got to do with our bills, pay more on them. So in order for us to pay more on them, we're going to take a commercial break, and then we'll be right back here at Time for Hemp.
You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. The only broadcasting network dedicated to ending the global war on drugs on iHeartRadio.
source for quality cannabis and sativa seeds. Serious Seeds are the creators of legendary strains like AK-47, Bubblegum, Chronic, Cali Mist, and White Russian. The AK-47 is probably the most awarded strain on the planet. The high THC content of AK-47 makes it the perfect medical strain for patients seeking quick pain relief. Cali Mist is an almost pure sativa. Female medical cannabis patients have reported that this strain helps relieve menstrual cramps. Serious Seeds just acquired another Dutch high-quality seed bank, Magus Genetics. From now on, Serious Seeds can offer you even more award-winning strains. The fine folks at Serious Seeds strive to breed the best cannabis genetics that they can find, so patients can rely on the effectiveness of their medicine. Go to SeriousSeeds.com to grow your medicine. That site again is SeriousSeeds.com.
Well, the Western had a bowl, good green reefer, a big fat Jones beef, much, much sweeter. Mighty don't hide it. Mighty don't hide it. Well, mighty don't hide it. Mighty don't hide it. Well, mighty don't hide it. Fire up right now.
Yeah, fire up right now. Be loud, be proud. Come out of the closet. Let everybody know that you do use marijuana, cannabis, hemp, sativa, I don't care, indica, ganja. Oh, just pick a name. I don't care what you want to call it. Just tell people that you use it and you're not ashamed of it. You're not a criminal. You don't want to go to jail because of it. You got friends who need it for medicinal purposes, and it's just horrible to lock up people when they're just trying to get their medications. And some of you might be watching the political circus and know that some members of the political circus just think it's a groovy thing to put you in jail, put your kids in foster homes because you need medical cannabis. Now, if you disagree with someone who thinks in those terms, make sure you don't put them in office. That's my rant. I'm sticking to it. Pass this joint conversation back to my joint host and joint guest here in the Big Joint Broadcast on Time for Hemp. Paul, Lenny?
Lenny, you resigned as a judge. You want to tell the audience about that? How you resigned your office?
I would love to. Nobody.
Lafayette, Colorado, I believe, right?
Lafayette, Colorado, eastern Boulder County. I was a municipal court judge, and believe me, I don't think anyone has ever had as much fun quitting a job as I had resigning. The chief judge in Lafayette went to the city council. The law in Lafayette was up to an ounce of pot, maximum $100 fine, which was what the state law was at the time. Because Colorado is what we call a home rule state, cities have more power than any city in any state in the country. Judge went to city council and said this $100 fine is simply inadequate. I need a maximum, not mandatory, I need a maximum of a year in jail and $1,000 fine for possessing up to an ounce of pot. My wife happily read the local paper and said, Lenny, did you know about this? And I said, of course, dear, of course I'm on top of that. Except the truth was, I said, what are you talking about? I read the article and saw that the boss had, in fact, gone to the city council. They were already up to a second reading. And I wrote a letter of resignation, which in a nutshell said, I have to turn in my badge. I have to turn in my black robe because it is unethical, in my opinion, to take the bench when I know walking in the door, I simply flat out will not enforce that law. That's not what they hired me for. They hired me to enforce the laws in a constitutional manner. They didn't hire me to make up my own mind. I had made up my own mind. I resigned. I sent the city council a letter, and then I thought, well, that's kind of a fun letter. I'm making a point here. I sent it to the local paper, the Daily Camera, as a letter to the editor. Somebody noticed it, pulled it, shipped it to the news desk. AP picked it up within 24 hours. We literally did go viral. ACLU jumped on. Organizations from all over the country jumped in. My friends jumped in. Some of my enemies, and that's a very short list of people, some of them jumped in. The city council had a study session, a public comment session set up. They had so many people signed up to speak, supporting my resignation, speaking against this new proposed law, that they canceled the study session. They withdrew the municipal ordinance attempt, and they said, and this cracks me up every time, they said, we don't have time for this. Well, duh. Isn't that the point? We could be, you and I could be fighting world hunger. We could be doing things to save lives. What do we need to be doing now? Oh, helping Iraqi veterans get pot because they believe it helps with PTSD. Does the science at that point matter? If somebody smokes pot and they say, I feel better, and we look at them clinically and we determine they're not manic, they just feel better. Is that an antidepressant medicine? Is that an intoxicant? Who cares? If there's no harm, they're not manic, and they say they feel better, I thought that was a good thing. So Lafayette backed down. They withdrew it. They said, if we ever look at this again, and this was a tell, they said, we know we will get over 3,000 emails. Well, I ask you, how do they know they get over 3,000 emails? Where'd that number come from? I'll tell you where it came from. They'd already gotten over 3,000 emails surrounding my resignation. They weren't going there again. And today, I am really happy to report Lafayette is a pot-friendly town. We have medical dispensaries, we have recreational, we have some rather large grows, all with the support and blessing of the city of Lafayette. I am more proud of resigning that job than of many of the things that I have gotten to do in my 64 years so far. It was fun quitting.
Well, I'm proud of you, too. I'm proud of you, too. There in Boulder County, I mean, it's got to be one of the friendliest counties in Colorado for cannabis, right?
Well, one would think so.
Got the University of Colorado there.
Oh, enrollment is way up, too, but they're quick to say it has nothing to do with cannabis.
A lot of out-of-state residents are paying that tuition now, huh?
Yes, they are, and in larger numbers than ever. It has become, over the last 15, 20 years, a serious world-class university. If you want to be an astronaut, you go to the University of Colorado. I believe there is no school on the planet that has graduated as many astronauts. We have, I believe, 3 Nobel Prize winners, 3 Nobel laureates. I'm impressed. It is not because people are sitting around accomplishing nothing. They're accomplishing. They're world class. But as far as the friendliest, what we are finding is that places that have desperately struggling economies are quite willing to be pot friendly, to earn the taxes, to collect the taxes. And for example, Pueblo, south of Colorado Springs, this week, this month, this year, particularly pot friendly. I spoke to the city council of Erie, a town that borders on my town of Lafayette. And I'd given many, many, many city council presentations because any municipality can ban any or all of the businesses, not the private grow, but the businesses. And by this point, I admit I was getting a little cranky, and I walked in, members of the council, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to ban every pot business. I want you to forbid growing, selling, because frankly, your neighboring town of Lafayette, you got it. You saw it coming, and you're right.
Spend your money here.
We want the business. You guys ban it. Do us a favor. They got the point. But they banned it anyway.
I've got a couple. I got a couple old friends of mine there in Boulder County. One is goes by the name of Agua Das with his hemp scream and high scream ice cream products. Do you know Agua Das at all?
I don't know Aqua Docs. Of course, the ice cream is a famous
Agua Das
product.
is a long-time hemp advocate and a hemp guy. He takes hemp seed-based milk and ice cream and has a psychoactive product he calls High Scream. And his hemp non-psychoactive product is called Hemp Scream. And I got a doctor who works for me there in Colorado, Dr. Eric Eisenbud. He's an ophthalmologist. He helped recommend medical marijuana. I told him, I think your name was going to be your career path, Eisenbud. But,
and
when I opened in Colorado, in Denver and Wheat Ridge, we opened a medical marijuana clinic there back in 2004. We were the only marijuana business in the state from 2004 until 2008, when there was this big explosion of these businesses across the state. But,
thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. You're welcome. The THCF medical clinics have seen patients across the state.
Well, that's particularly
crowds who helped break open and supported Mason Tvert and Brian Vincente and their activities as well.
Well, another thing you have pioneered, Paul, is broadcasting. And we are down to the last couple of minutes on the big broadcast. And this gives us an opportunity to put a spotlight on URLs and events and programming that we want our audience to focus on. We'll start with our joint host, and then we'll go to our joint guest here on Time for Hemp. Paul, you've been doing a television show for about 18 years, 16 years now?
It's 19 years next month, 19 years. And it's Cannabis Common Sense. It's on cable around the country, and it's available on the Internet. You can watch it through our web portal at hemp.org or through Casper's site at Time for Hemp. And you got Roku television. You got to figure out a way to put it live on Roku. That's the next step.
Well, all we need to do is be able to afford staff. And we are able to broadcast live on Roku and even do a simulcast live.
You just have to link up our control room with your Roku thing.
That's it, and we're able to do it.
A little early to figure out how to do that.
That would be fantastic. And people can then tune in and watch live. It's also on Ustream It. Is that right?
Yep, Ustream. That's USTREAM.TV. You watch. Just look up Cannabis Common Sense, and you can see literally hundreds of them. We've done over 800 shows now. You can see hundreds of them on YouTube. Once again, just look up Cannabis Common Sense.
Yeah, you have a fantastic team of people that make certain that the programming is not only stellar to watch, but also properly archived and quickly posted. So anybody following the show can follow the post and stay up to date very easily. And to your honor, you want to give a shout out?
Yes. I want to give a shout out to you guys who have been carrying the ball for more years than I think you predicted it would have taken. You've gone over the goal line. We've won the war. Now we're winning the peace. It's like the reconstruction of Europe after World War II. But we have won the war. Now we need to take the next steps. I would encourage people to look at mycanaryapp.com. mycanaryapp.com. It has a video showing what we're doing. Most interesting, it has a science paper discussing why the things that we are looking at are things that matter, why these things really can help you. As a final note, I would note that I need a new medical pot doc in Colorado because the brilliant guy I had been seeing has run into some legal trouble, not to do with marijuana recommendations, not prescriptions, but recommendations, but to do with codeine. Was he set up? Don't know. Coincidence? Don't know. I do know that when I first went to him, about the second thing he said was, by the way, if you're here for pain management, which is magic code for codeine, opiates, He said, I'm not taking on any pain management patients. Not exactly what you'd expect to hear from a doc trying to build an opium sales business. So I will be looking up Eric Eisenbud. I will be dropping your name, Paul, if that's okay. And again, James, thank you for what you're doing.
I want to remind people that Lenny's also a joint host every Wednesday on the big broadcast of Time for Hemp. I also remind you to tune in and listen and share us with your friends. This is my 25th anniversary year as an activist, and next year is Time for Hemp's 25th anniversary as a broadcasting entity, and we have some special events planned throughout the next year, and so make it a point to share that with your friends as well. And remember, the next time you hear me, you'll know that it's Time for Hemp.
Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spent. Take another look and spend some time for him. Don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yes, it's time for him. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soils. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, time for help! Yeah!
Education and information. See what all the buzz is all about. It's time for hemp. It's time for hemp.